Welcome to Don't Mind Me, I'm Different, the podcast where I kick down the barriers and myths surrounding ADHD in the workplace. Whether it's navigating the office chaos, trying to break this stigma, or learning what is this thing called ADHD, I'm here step by step to advocate, educate, and empower you in any way that I can. Get ready to own your difference and shine on the job. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. I am not a professional. I am just a guy sharing his experience with ADHD. And if you do need help, please reach out to a professional, because there are many out there that can really make a huge impact in changing your life. So yeah, we're back with the second part of the A Silent Epidemic series about ADHD and depression and all the factors that may contribute to that, which include stress, toxicity, brainwave patterns, and gene mutations. And I also get out there with you guys on the street and ask you how that affects you. And thank you guys for having the courage and the patience to get on the show. And please stay tuned to the end, because I have a special gift for you. So we're back on the second part of this Silent Epidemic series, where we look at all the factors that can contribute to depression. And all of these were taken from the podcast series, 7 Steps from Freedom, Anxiety, to Freedom from Anxiety, Depression, and ADHD with Naturopath Jodi Gozzard. She breaks it down much better than I ever could, so I definitely recommend following that up with listening to that podcast series. So the first one we're going to talk about is stress. And personally, I've dealt with a lot of stress in my life. I took it with a minimum of concern. And, like most people, oh, he's just stressed out, or that's no big deal. It is actually something that can lead to major health complications. And one time that I can remember that I was extremely stressed out, and it actually led to me, evaluating, where my trajectory, where I wanted to go in my life. And, I had taken this role as a mixer in my current job. And like part of that role requires driving a fork truck. And, it's a stand-up model. It took me a while. I've hit a bunch of things, but what really led up to that was, I'd hit a safety shower, and water had caused, like a month before, and water had gotten everywhere. And I really thought like that safety shower shouldn't even have been there. It didn't matter. I have to take responsibility for what happened. And the straw that broke the camel's back, for me at least, was when I was backing up out of getting a tote so I could, bring it down and continue mixing the job that I was mixing. Bringing it down, I had hit this thin guard rail that, and I pulled it down enough that it broke it off, and it was like swinging. So it was definitely a safety hazard. Of course at the time I'm like, well, that shouldn't even have been there. It's not even like necessary, but if it had been like a couple inches higher and I brought that down, that could have been extremely, like, that would have been a totally different situation. Chemicals could have gotten on the floor. I could have went to the hospital, you know, and the crazy thing is, like, I was really literally trying my best to to slow down and take care, but in that moment I got distracted. And I had been I like my privileges for being on the fork truck had been immediately revoked. um and it was humiliating. And I felt a lot of stress and pressure, like, was I going to lose my job? What was going to happen? I felt completely powerless over, you know, what was going to happen because, like I said, I've been trying my hardest. So I was so frustrated with myself, um, and then what other people would think. And the stress from that was, like, I can't even describe it. It was, I was angry and depressed, and like, I just was broken in a way. And looking back on that, I'm glad that happened, because, like, if that didn't happen the way that it did, like, I wouldn't have started this podcast today, and I wouldn't have looked deeper into my mental health than I had previously had, and tried to figure this out. So stress, like, needs to be talked about, and it's absolutely necessary when it comes to change. This is called the stress cycle. So how do I fix this? So this is like a life event or something in your day that has utilized the nutrients in your brain that help deal with stress. You use them up too rapidly, and your neurotransmitters will drop in response, which can result in fatigue. And that will impact your hormonal response. So the first stage in this is called adrenal stress. So where there's high levels of cortisol, and that starts to suppress your DHEA, which is important for mental health, memory, focus, positivity, and energy to every single part of the body. So it's very important. And this causes a fight or flight or chaos response. So if this is going on for too high and for too long, this will affect your sleep cycle. The next stage is adrenal fatigue. And in this stage, it's characterized by depression, a lack of purpose, sadness, and a loss of hope. You could fall into a dark depression, and which can include memory loss. You can't absorb nutrients, which are required for chemical balance. And the adrenal glands are stressed, which the adrenal glands are responsible for regulating metabolism, blood pressure, and stress. And the final stage is called adrenal depression. And this is very dangerous. It's a physical and emotional depression when cortisol and DHEA are very low, can't function, can't problem solve, and can't stop crying. There's thoughts of doom, no hope, loss of purpose. It's absolutely the lowest form of depression, and it's very similar to Addison's disease. This is why it's important to talk about stress and recognize stress and do the things that help with stress, which include, like, having a mental health day, where you do pretty much, you lounge around the house in in your pajamas, and maybe don't even take phone calls. There's a slow recovery to restore from adrenal function through herbs. You have to remove yourself from stress and get enough sleep, although this can be difficult because high levels of stress causes trouble sleeping. So we are actually hardwired to be negative. Our brains aren't designed to make us happy. They are designed to keep us alive. And they do so by replaying negative experiences over and over so that we won't forget them. This, however, isn't necessary for most of life's situations, such as, like when you touch something hot, or you're running out in front of a car, or you don't look both ways before crossing the sidewalk. Those type of situations. And it often creates a lot of inner tension that leads to stress. And over time, that can be toxic. It impairs our ability to regulate emotions, our ability to have healthy and nurturing relationships, and gets in the way of work. So anytime that you notice that you're stressed, or your heart rate, or even your breath is shallow, just pause. Take a few breaths and try to visualize somebody who has done something nice for you, or something that you really appreciated. Just remember, I can't control what is happening around me, but I can control how I react to it.
I'm stressed right now.
Okay.
My family's in there eating, my daughter and my grandson. She has to go to college back to Duquesne, and I'm filling out paperwork. The paperwork's been at the school since January 2nd. School starts on Friday.
Wow.
They need $50,000.
That is stressful.
And they're talking about we can figure it out. It'll take another week for them to do what they have to do on their side.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just a little stressed out about that, but I'm just nothing I can do about it.
I mean, you're making an investment in the future,
I'm
right?
making an investment in my kids and my daughter, and I'm just praying everything goes through by the end of the day.
My anxiety goes through the roof. I start thinking about every bad situation that could happen. No positive thoughts go through my head when I'm stressed anyway, or I try to, but it's hard, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I say, I don't know, I guess, yeah.
And how long are you in those states?
Probably about, I don't know, really, maybe, it just depends on what the situation is. I guess 20 minutes till I calm myself down somehow. I walk away, take a couple breaths. Other than that, it just prolongs, it just keeps coming back. I know. Try to work on it, really think about my kids, honestly.
Yeah.
Knowing that I have hope in somebody that looks up to me,
Yeah.
That keeps me going, really.
It's hard for me to manage. I feel like as I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot better with it because I did deal with it for so long, with not knowing how or any medication. But dealing with stress it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I run into stressful situations, and I admire other people who can just have things come at them and almost seem unfazed by it. For me, it's like, man, it felt like it added 50 things and it's only one.
I know, and especially for us, something like that might be not as stressful to somebody else. It's the end of the world for us. Especially how our emotions just get skyrocketed.
Yes, absolutely.
So, what do you do to kind of cope with that?
I think I've learned to calm myself. I will say I'm a quiet person. I normally tend to reserve to myself.
Yeah, like an introvert.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Me too.
And for that reason, even doing stuff like this, coming to the mall for me is actually a big step.
Wow.
I just never like to really leave or go out in big crowds by myself.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it sets off some of my
me too.
triggers.
Stress definitely plays out with anxiety and with depression, especially when I can't get things done.
Okay.
Because my ADHD will play up to the point where everything gets so overwhelming and everything's moving so fast that I can't focus and I can't get things done, and then that'll make me feel like I'm failing.
Yeah.
And so I have to learn tricks of I make deals with myself. I've learned lots of coping mechanisms. I'm only allowed to fall apart on Saturdays.
That's one thing. Is there anything else that helps you deal with stress?
Lists and trying to stay as organized as I can. That's probably it. And then And then we do, like, I think everybody with ADHD or even autism, we have our stimming things, right? We have our things that, so for me, it's like I have a hand thing that I do that helps calm me down.
Okay.
And then I've got shows that are comfort shows.
Yeah, okay.
So Star Trek, anything Star Trek.
Oh, a
I'm
Trekkie.
yes.
You also have an emotional support dog. I see.
Shiva.
Shiva. Hey, Shiva.
Say hi.
Hey. Yeah, she's very, very sweet.
And she helps. She helps a lot. And then I have a schedule. I work from home. I'm a consultant. And so I take her out almost every 2 hours most of the time to kind of breathe and go, oh, okay, I can't just sit here and work 14 hours straight and drive myself crazy. So it helps me relax and then she gets all the company that she needs. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. Now the next topic is toxicity. So this is an everyday occurrence from fuel, makeup, cosmetics, cleaning products, pesticides. The list is really endless. So what happens is there's an overload of minerals. Some minerals compete with each other in the body, such as copper, which is responsible for dopamine and adrenaline production, to zinc, which is responsible for the immune system and basically our whole body function. Think about all the copper pipes leading to all the homes and from tap water. When there is a higher ratio to copper, this can plummet your zinc levels, and that causes panic and anxiety disorders. Women with fantastic mental health froze in the middle. One story is like one example is like when a woman with fantastic mental health froze in the middle of traffic and could not take her foot off the brake. It produces anxiety around driving, has been exposed to copper. Copper is necessary, but the ratio has to be right. Another major one is the fluoride that is added to our water source. It is not the same as the one that we need for our bodies. It is a synthetic version. When we store too much fluoride, it limits the amount of iodine we can retain. We can end up with hypothyroid conditions, memory problems, energy problems, fertility problems, all these things that can really affect your well-being. Now, this isn't to scare you into like, I can't eat anything, or I can't wash myself, or, what am I going to do? This is just me saying you just have to be careful because there is no way to escape it. It's literally everywhere, especially in heavily polluted areas, heavily populated areas. So estrogen dominance in men competes with testosterone and can come from the glass cleaner, bleach, fabric, fire retardants, and carpet deodorizers. Aromatizers block the ability to convert the estrogens down and out of the body, and you end up with these xenoestrogens that can't escape your body. This also comes from the plastics that aren't BPA free, because when the plastics in heat, they break down to estrogens. Prostates start to enlarge, and if this goes unchecked for 20 or more years, this can develop into something more sinister. The symptoms start with depression, anxiety, chronic fatigue, apathy, loss of appetite, or going to the bathroom more frequently through the night. In women, it has virtually the same effect. An imbalance between estrogen and progesterone, which will cause PMS, terrible cramping, heavy periods, fibroids or fluid retention, weight gain, and anxiety. The good news is that you can clear it out with a vitamin called indole-3 carbinol, or you can eat more broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and kale. Again, this is about being aware of the things that are out there and keeping an eye on our health.
Another great tip that Jodi was talking about was dishwashers wash your dishes properly. So any soap residue from hand washing is eliminated. So that's another good reason to use your dishwasher. There are some things that are more sinister, such as mold exposure. This can be very difficult to excrete because once it gets a presence in your body, it will stay there and start to release its toxins. It's really important to avoid things like if you notice patches in your ceilings or wall that you are probably breathing in mold spores. Pure essential oils are the only thing that can kill mold. So there are a lot of toxins out there that can cause neurological disorders such as paint solvents and tobacco smoke. This is where it is really important to know if you have the gene mutations because they make it harder for you to detoxify. Typically, having chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic migraines, chronic neurological symptoms that are very vague. Environmental pollutants and metabolic profile. Yeah, this can typically show up as chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic migraines, and chronic neurological symptoms that are very vague. A metabolic profile shows that which systems aren't working right, and the integrated pathology labs do them all over the world. They can give you incredible insights and description of all the toxins that you may have and what it will do to your central nervous system, mood, and energy levels. A new science called channelopathy, where they have found heavy metals that could find their way into blocking cellular channels and taking their place, such as cobalt taking the place of B12. Cobalt is actually found on many packaged good production lines. Another heavy metal is lead that has been used in paints, can actually be passed down through generations. It's just a matter of getting the right test done that can actually make an impact in a matter of days. Another thing you can do is eat more organically grown food. So the pesticides that are sprayed on these fruits or vegetables and the skin that you eat actually increases the impact of ingesting them. There's a list called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, which you can find on mindbodygreen.com. So this one is called the Think Dirty app, and it was recommended to me on a YouTube video with Dr. Daniel Amen, who has literally scanned over 1,000 brains. So in this app, each ingredient listed on the product label or manufacturer website is evaluated for documented evidence of carcinogenicity, genicity, developmental and reproductive toxicity, and or allergenicity, genicity, and immunotoxicity. This helps you to see what beauty or cleaning products aren't actually healthy for you. So an 8 out of 10 score means that the product ingredients have potentially serious negative long-term health effects, such as a carcinogen. A 4 to 7 has a potential moderate negative long-term health effects, such as reproductive health, may cause blindness if used near the eyes, or a neurotoxin. And a 0 to 3 product doesn't contain anything that can harm you. Yeah, and there are also many homemade remedies for cleaners such as bicarbonate soda that are just as effective as store-bought, if not cheaper and better. And you can also go to goodhousekeeping.com. There's a lot of great homemade remedies there. And I also created a list of the products that I use that I have gotten from the Think Dirty app. And you can get that at advocate.com/. addvocacy.xyz/thinkdirty, and that's addvocacy.xyz/thinkdirty.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I can't really say I look for stuff to try to avoid it. Not really, no.
Yeah. So I was like, almost everything that I had was like around an 8 or a 9
Really.
in my house.
Right.
And like I've literally had to throw out all that stuff because, and they were name brand things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, I'm very aware of the stuff we put in our bodies and how it can affect us, and I do watch that. Not necessarily sure I know everything. I feel like we're always learning. I haven't paid attention to how toxins affect ADHD, to be honest with you. But I've definitely learned, a lot of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I learned a lot about that, and just like when I was a mechanic, actually, everything you touch in a shop can cause cancer or will cause cancer.
Wow.
Not legal in the state of California, and that was a huge thing for me to actually open up my eyes. That's why I got out of the car industry. I still work on cars on my own personal, but as far as working in a garage, I'll never do it again.
Wow.
Because talk about in the workplace, there's a lot of jobs out there. I don't think people realize that we are pretty much just killing ourselves.
Yeah.
A mechanic is definitely one of them. People don't think about it, but you're in a non-ventilated area most of the time, and you're just breathing in fumes, all these oil.
Wow.
And that's
Wow.
worse.
I'm learning stuff.
Some of the cleaning products, I mean, you don't think about, but there's even worse stuff that we're just exposed to. I really don't feel like anybody cares. You know what I mean? People don't.
Well, I just think that, they care about different things.
Right.
Or it's not that big of a deal because it's not causing something right away, but down the line.
Exactly.
And the fact that these companies, these multi-million, billion-dollar companies are just like this stuff is in like baby formula and baby shampoo.
Yeah.
Like, so you're getting introduced to it at a very early age.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Before you can even really say or know how to defend yourself from it. Yeah.
Oh, I don't. I mean, I'm terrible at cleaning anyway, but I don't really pay that much attention to that kind of stuff. I've never been like a super organic kind of person, and I think that a lot of that stuff is great for some people. For me, it's not always as great, and it just doesn't work. I don't find it to be as effective and all that kind of stuff. But I also I'm not a compulsive cleaner, so I feel like I'm probably messier than most. So, if I use Clorox once a month, who cares? Well, so the problem I have with some of that is that, yes, there are bad chemicals out there, but there's also stuff that occurs in nature that can also be really reactive. Yeah. So for me, a lot of those all-natural skin products, for example, I used to work in beauty, and those are really reactive to my skin, and they've got reactive properties to them. And remember, asbestos occurs in nature. Anthrax occurs in nature. Not everything that's nature is great.
That's real bad. And I have a lot of my whole family. We grew up in the country in West Virginia, and we have digestive issues from the well water. Yes, Clorox, everything we use, Fabuloso. Yeah. I was using that till I seen this big thing on the news. You don't use that anymore. And the kids, my grandson and them, they suffer from asthma. Yeah. So what does it really come from? Making me aware too of more chemicals, like the more toxins, to be aware of it. Nobody talks about it.
So the next one we're talking about here is called brain waves. And this is measured in function or energy levels your brain is producing at the time. So delta is for sleep, alpha is for like meditation and when you're about to go to sleep. Beta is for concentration and focus, and high beta is like for muscle movement and high level energy such as stress or anxiety. This could happen to anyone born into a stressful or abusive environment, which can stimulate a lot of beta waves or high beta waves at an early age. This puts them into a state of high anxiety, even while they're trying to sleep or relax. And it can feel like they can't get out of that state and that it is inescapable. Certain therapies can be used to restore brainwave patterns back to normal. Meditation is a great one that helps to control your brainwave patterns. So your brainwaves can come out of balance by being born into a traumatic experience, lifelong stress, or drug abuse. This makes the brain less sharp. Prolonged self-medication for anxiety and depression can throw it out of whack. Or gene mutations such as pyruria make it so you don't have the ability to make the brain transmitters from birth, that you suffer from a lot of high anxiety because you aren't making a lot of GABA. If in the developmental years you aren't exposed to the nutrients that make your GABA, which is for calming, serotonin for positivity, dopamine for energy, joy, motivation, and drive, your brain will eventually learn how to produce waves that cannot make those things properly. Even with supplements, once you stop taking them, it will go back because it's all the brain knows how to do. One of the issues is being born with streptococcus. And because it produces those D-lactic acids, which are nerve toxins, it will cause learning disorders from birth. Streptococcus is a bacteria issue and not a brainwave problem. However, if the bacteria isn't removed before 5 or 6 years old, the onset of the brainwave patterns have already developed from being foggy and distracted and unable to concentrate, symptoms like ADHD. The good news is it can be restored through neurotherapy, which is a retraining the brainwave patterns, and that has shown to be permanent. Research has shown it is to be 89% effective compared to medication, which only is about 12% successful. It is important to get a unique QEEG test done, which identifies the exact area of the brain which is outside the normal range. This is done by creating new neural pathways and can increase memory function. By playing games or watching movies that reward you for getting the parts of the brain that aren't communicating properly to better connect. A telltale sign someone may be dealing with this issue is long-term problems: dementia, memory loss, chronic addiction, bipolar, PTSD, sugar cravings, impulse control issues, and many more have been aided with neurotherapy. It's unique to everyone where the damage is and has happened and can be done as young as 5 years old. This could be a head injury, so your brain is literally like a butter-like substance, and your skull has like these bony ridges. So you can imagine, like, after you've gotten like a concussion, like what kind of damage that can do, especially if it's happened multiple times. It's kind of scary. So high beta brain waves, which are high anxiety states, if you produce a lot of alpha, high beta or delta waves while you are awake, you tend to have those symptoms of ADHD, where you are unable to focus or concentrate or even finish a task. So brain waves can cause depression, anxiety, and fatigue. They can create all sorts of things, not just mood and energy disruptions, but also biological functions. Yeah, and the next one we're talking about is gene mutations. You could be born with it, but these genes may not be turned on until you've been exposed to a certain situation or stress, and could be passed down from one or both parents. There are hundreds of gene mutations that a person could have, and they are called SNPs or polymorphisms. The liver doesn't always get looked at and is one of the most compromised organs in the gene mutation. This affects the MTHFR gene, and it is responsible for the ability to convert the nutrients folate to methylfolate. Methylfolate makes serotonin and dopamine and has an impact on histamine. So some examples of folate would be lettuce, spinach, or leafy greens. There are two different types of MTHFR. The first is called A1298C, and it tends to have a stronger connection to mental health problems, such as bipolar disorder, paranoia, schizophrenia, and premenstrual dysmorphic syndrome. And many others. The other is C677T, which it actually is more common. And if you got it from both parents, you are only absorbing 30% of the folate you need. This also impacts your histamine, which is a bit of a mother transmitter, which affects the dopamine and serotonin levels, whether they are too high or too low. Low histamine can tend towards hallucination, and if it is high, particularly in people who are sensitive to allergies, that can tend towards anxiety, depression, and fatigue. This can lead to chronic illness for individuals with this particular gene mutation, are more prone to toxins and allergies, some being extremely sensitive. Low serotonin causes low self-esteem and can lead to severe levels of depression and heart complications from blood clotting. Histamine also controls your stomach acid, which could lead to some cases of chronic reflux or heartburn. These people typically end up on PBI medication, which is trying to correct that problem, but what ends up doing is blocking your ability to absorb proteins and fats, and only allows for carbohydrate metabolism. This causes weight gain, insulin, and diabetes problems, and not enough brain chemical production, and severe psychological issues. If you have any of these symptoms, you might consider getting tested, and you'll need to take the converted folate, methylfolate, in order to bypass that genetic mutation. Pyroluria is in individuals highly sensitive to fear and have trouble absorbing zinc and copper. Signs are little white spots on your nails when you're under pressure or the immune system is compromised, and the zinc will plummet. Zinc MB6 is required for every brain neurotransmitter, including stomach acid. And when that's down, you will develop more food allergies and bacterial infections. Your stress levels can skyrocket without warning and are sound sensitive, light sensitive, and smell sensitive. This can also create period problems, erectile dysfunction, libido problems, and acne. Aside from getting the right amount of zinc supplement, it is recommended that you take at least one mental health day throughout the week. This is where there's no stimulation or having people to talk to. I generally take a mental health day every week, and when I don't, I notice like my stress levels are high. So I may need to get this test, and I'm definitely seeing my doctor soon. So I'm gonna invest in that because like I need these mental health days. Like they are the gold. Like I need to recharge for the next week. Okay. Yeah, I had a lot of fun putting that episode together for you guys, and getting out there and talking with people has definitely helped me. And I appreciate everybody that had the courage to talk about these issues because they need to be talked about. And in the next part of the series, we're going to be talking about, the underlying issues that may contribute to depression outside of the stuff that we already talked about. And as always, feel free to check out my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Ron Sowers. That's patreon.com/RONSOUERS. And every little bit helps. But the more you donate, the more you contribute, the more that you get. And don't forget to pick up that list, that Think Dirty list at advocate.xyz/Think Dirty. That's ADDVOC/THINKDIRTY. And as always, you can feel free to email me. I prefer a voice message if you can at my email. That's ronsowers@dadhdwss.com. That's RONSOUERS@dadhdwss.com. And as always, subscribe. Thank you for listening, and may the source be with you.